Some monuments are erased by war, others by fire, and some simply fade into dust, taking their secrets with them. What remains is not just rubble, but silence, echoing the loss of knowledge, power, or identity that once stood in stone. Across continents and centuries, these destroyed landmarks mark more than physical destruction. They reveal the fear of memory, the weight of heritage, and the fragility of history itself. Our journey begins in the mountains of North America, where one of the continent's most ancient and mysterious sites lies weathered, damaged, and still unsolved. Bighorn Medicine Wheel, USA. Hidden high in Wyoming's Bighorn Mountains, the Bighorn Medicine Wheel stretches 80 feet across, built entirely of stone by an unknown Native American culture, possibly the Plains tribes. Archaeologists estimate its construction dates back over 700 years, though some suggest it could be even older. Its structure is precise, a central cairn with 28 radial lines extending to surrounding stone circles. The layout appears astronomically aligned, pointing to the summer solstice and the rising of specific stars like Aldebaran and Sirius. Some researchers believe it functioned as a celestial calendar. Others say it held ceremonial or spiritual meaning tied to seasonal rituals. But much of the original formation has been damaged. Early settlers moved stones, weather eroded the layout, and hikers unknowingly trampled parts of it. Though now protected, sections have been reconstructed, meaning the exact original design is partly lost. From the silence of the mountains, we move to the heart of industrial-age London, where glass and iron once formed a palace that looked too modern to ever fall. Crystal Palace, UK. When it was unveiled in 1851, the Crystal Palace stunned the world. Built in Hyde Park, London, to house the Great Exhibition, it was a massive structure made almost entirely of cast iron and glass, a revolutionary design that stretched over 1,800 feet long. Designed by Joseph Paxton, it symbolized the peak of British industrial and colonial confidence. After the exhibition, it was moved to Sydenham Hill, where it stood for over 80 years. But on the night of November 30th, 1936, disaster struck. A small fire broke out, possibly due to an electrical fault, and rapidly consumed the highly flammable materials inside. Within hours, the entire palace was reduced to twisted iron and ash. Thousands of Londoners gathered helplessly to watch it burn. Winston Churchill called it a great shattering of a public monument. Though its foundations remain, the original structure is gone. Its destruction marked not just the loss of a building, but the symbolic end of a confident empire. But while fire brought down London's glass cathedral, another blaze, centuries earlier, consumed something far more precious, the written memory of the ancient world. Library of Alexandria, Egypt. Founded in the 3rd century BCE under the rule of Ptolemy I, the Library of Alexandria was more than just a collection of scrolls, it was a monument to human knowledge. Located in the Egyptian city of Alexandria, the library aimed to gather every written work in the known world. Estimates suggest it may have housed up to 400,000 scrolls, covering science, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, medicine, and literature. Scholars from across the Mediterranean came to study and teach here. But its destruction was not a single event. It was a slow erasure. Some sources blame Julius Caesar's fire during his siege of Alexandria in 48 BCE. Others cite later conflicts, such as Emperor Aurelian's campaign or even early Christian purges. Over centuries, war, politics, and neglect chipped away at the library's contents until almost nothing remained. No structure, no catalog, no trace. What burned wasn't just parchment. It was a vast archive of what humanity once knew and will likely never recover. If Alexandria's fall was gradual, the next site vanished in an instant, reduced to rubble by explosives in one of the 21st century's most shocking cultural crimes. Temple of Bel, Syria. In the heart of the ancient city of Palmyra stood the Temple of Bel, one of the most important religious buildings of the ancient Middle East. Constructed in 32 CE during the Roman era, the temple was dedicated to the Mesopotamian god Bel and reflected a mix of Greco-Roman and Middle Eastern architectural styles. For nearly 2,000 years, its columns and massive stone walls withstood empires, sandstorms, and time itself. But in 2015, during the Syrian civil war, the temple met a violent end. ISIS militants captured Palmyra and, viewing the temple as idolatrous, rigged it with explosives. On August 30th, 2015, they detonated the charges, destroying the inner sanctum and most of the surrounding structure. The act was condemned worldwide as a cultural tragedy and war crime. Satellite images confirmed what remained: rubble and a ghostly outline where history once stood. The Temple of Bel is now one more victim in the long war, not just over land, but over memory itself. But Syria's cultural loss didn't end there. Just 150 miles to the north, an entire living city, older than most civilizations, was torn apart by years of relentless war. Old city of Aleppo, Syria. Aleppo is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, with its roots tracing back over 4,000 years. At its center stood the Old City, an intricate maze of narrow stone alleys, Ottoman-era homes, ancient mosques, and bustling souks. Recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1986, it represented layers of Islamic, Byzantine, and even Hellenistic history. But in 2012, during the height of the Syrian civil war, the Old City became a frontline battleground. Armed groups and government forces clashed in the tight urban quarters, and over the next 4 years, heavy shelling, airstrikes, and firefights devastated the area. Grand Mosque's 11th century minaret collapsed. Entire market districts were reduced to rubble. Ancient homes were gutted by fire or scarred by bullet holes. By the time fighting eased in 2016, more than 60% of the Old City had been damaged or destroyed. Restoration efforts have begun, but much of what was once lived-in, authentic history is now only preserved in photographs and satellite images. Centuries earlier, another landmark faced destruction, not by war, but by a single well-aimed explosion that turned a classical wonder into shattered marble. Parthenon, Greece. Perched atop the Acropolis in Athens, the Parthenon was built between 447 and 432 BCE. As a temple to Athena, the city's patron goddess. Crafted from white marble and adorned with intricate sculptures, it symbolized the height of classical Greek architecture and philosophy. But in 1687, during a conflict between the Ottoman Empire and Venetian forces, the Parthenon became more than a symbol. It became a target. The Ottomans had repurposed the temple as a gunpowder storage depot. When Venetian cannons bombarded the Acropolis, a direct hit ignited the explosives inside. The result was catastrophic. The central structure was torn apart, its roof blown off, and priceless sculptures destroyed or scattered across the hillside. For centuries afterward, the Parthenon stood as a broken relic, its fragments looted, its meaning transformed from victory to vulnerability. Today, even with partial restorations, it bears the scars of that single explosion, reminders that even the grandest monuments are not immune to the chaos of war. But destruction isn't always ancient. In 2019, the world watched in real time as one of Europe's most beloved cathedrals was swallowed by fire. Notre Dame Cathedral, France. Standing on the Ile de la Cité in Paris since the 12th century, Notre Dame Cathedral was more than a church. It was a symbol of France itself. With its towering Gothic arches, stained glass rose windows, and centuries-old gargoyles, it had witnessed coronations, revolutions, and wars. Construction began in 1163 and continued for nearly 200 years. Over time, it became one of the most visited landmarks in Europe. But on April 15, 2019, disaster struck. A fire broke out beneath the roof during renovation work and spread rapidly through the wooden framework known as the forest, which dated back to the 13th century. Within hours, the spire collapsed and large parts of the vaulted ceiling were destroyed. Firefighters saved the bell towers and much of the facade, but the damage was massive. The world watched live as the cathedral burned, an event that felt like a blow to global heritage. Today, restoration is underway, but the original craftsmanship, aged wood, and untouched history can never truly be replaced. 7 landmarks lost, some to war, others to time, but each leaves behind more than ruins. They leave unanswered questions and a warning we often ignore. History isn't just what we remember, it's also what we've lost. The ruins left behind speak louder than the monuments we still stand beneath.